Hello all, I'm Dr. Ajitha, Assistant Professor, BBA Department. Today I'm going to take about research process. So before getting into the topic, let's see what is research. Research is an organized and systematic study to find solution to problem through collection, evaluation and analysis of data. For example, if let's take an example of a company, HR issue in a company. In a company, there is a lot of absenteeism, the productivity is reducing, people are not motivated, their morale is reducing. There are so many problems. This can be because of their job satisfaction. So our problem is job satisfaction is getting affected. So now we have to find out the problem, collect the relevant data and find out the solution to solve the problem which is affecting the job satisfaction. So that process is research. And research process is the series of actions or series of steps taken to do this research. So these steps in research process is highly interrelated. Now let's see the various steps involved in research process. There are around 10 steps involved in research process. When the research is undertaken is in-depth in nature, the steps may increase. And if it is not very much in-depth, the steps may reduce. It is based on the researcher. The first step is formulation of research problem. In any research, the very important thing to be done is finding out or identifying the problem. Once the problem is identified properly, the solution can be found out easily. If the problem is not identified correctly, we cannot formulate a solution for the problem. There are basically two steps involved in identifying the problem, namely understanding the problem. First, we have to understand what is the problem. Based on that only we can find out the solution, and stating the problem in meaningful terms. Once we state them in meaningful terms, we can use them for the next coming steps in research process. Next is review of literature. The review of literature is the process of examining various books, articles or journals or some internet sources to collect information relevant to the topic of research. In our example, job satisfaction is the topic or is the problem. So based on job satisfaction, we collect various informations, maybe the factors affecting job satisfaction, how job satisfaction is affecting the productivity or absenteeism or motivation level of employees, etc. We collect all the relevant facts based on the topic. There are two types of literatures, namely conceptual literature and empirical literature. Conceptual literature gives the concepts and theories related to the particular topic, and empirical literature is the research work which is already done by some other researcher, which is published in some sources. And this was the second step. And the third step is preparation of research proposal. This research proposal is a summary of the research to be conducted, stating the objective of the study, the methodology to be used in the study, the time period required for the study, the cost involved in the research, etc. So this act like a roadmap. So based on this, the researcher will know where to start, how to go and where to end and all that. And the next step is development of hypothesis. Hypothesis is a tentative assumption of the research solution. So, for example, in our study of the job satisfaction in XY company, if we say that there is a relationship between job satisfaction and productivity of employees, that is null hypothesis. There is no relationship between X and Y when we see, that is null hypothesis. That is, we assume that there is no difference between the population parameter and the sample mean. An alternative hypothesis, how it goes is, there is a relation between maybe job satisfaction and the productivity of employees. That is alternative hypothesis. These are the two basic types of hypothesis available. So null hypothesis assumes that there is no difference between the sample mean and the population parameters. while the alternative hypothesis assumes the other way around. So once we have developed the hypothesis, next step is preparation of research design. This research design is a plan stating how we collect the data and analyze it. So what are the tools used for collection of data? What is our population? How much is our sample size? All that comes under your research design. And how we are going to analyze the data, what are the tools we use to analyze the data, all that we plan it in research design. And the next one is collection of data. This is a step in which we collect the data from the population or the samples. In our example, we directly collect the data from the employees of XY company, or we collect it from some other sources like maybe the company magazines or some other articles, etc. There are two methods of collection of data, namely census method and sampling method. When we collect data from all the items in the population, that is known as census method. For example, we are collecting data from all the employees of XY company, that is census method. The second method is sampling method. When we collect data from few items in the sample population. For example, we are collecting data from few employees in XY company, which represents the entire population. That method is known as sampling method. And basically, there are two types of data, namely primary data and secondary data. The data which is collected for the first time, fresh, that is primary data. When we collect data from the employees of XY company, that is primary data. The data which is already collected and used for research or which is published already, that is secondary data. Maybe the data which we use from the articles published in some magazines or etc. That is secondary data. The next step is analysis of data. This is a step in which we convert the raw data, the bulky lot of data, into a manageable unit which is more meaningful. The data which we collect from the population or sample is very, very huge and it will not have adequate meaning in itself. So we have to convert that into the meaningful terms and which is in a manageable unit or size. That process is known as analysis of data. It involves certain steps like classification, tabulation, and coding and editing. Classification is a process in which we group the data into various sections or various groups. We divide the entire data into different groups on the basis of certain common characteristics. That is classification. When we put that data in a tabular form for easy understanding or for comparison, that process is known as tabulation. Coding is a process of converting the data into symbols or numbers for easy recognition or analysis, that is coding. And editing involves removing all unwanted data or irrelevant data and taking what is required. That process is known as editing. Next is testing of hypothesis. After we analyze the data, the next step what we do is we test the hypothesis which we have framed or formulated in the previous step, in the first starting stage of the research process. So we test the hypothesis to find out whether we have to accept the hypothesis or reject it. We test it with various tools like F-test, T-test, Z-test, etc. Next is interpretation of data. Interpretation is nothing but giving an explanation to the result what we have derived from analysis. So this can be based on certain concepts or theories which is already available. Next is preparation of report. Report is a documentation of each and every step in the research process. This is very, very important for further reference or for further use in the same field of study. So in this report, each and every activity collected or analyzed or concluded is documented in a systematic and orderly manner. This report consists of three basic sections, namely preliminary section, main section, and end section. Preliminary section consists of the topic of the research, the table of content, the list of tables or list of charts, acknowledgement, etc. And the main section consists of introduction, objective, reviews of literature, research, methodology used, analysis part, the findings, conclusion or suggestion, etc. And the end section usually consists of the bibliography and appendix. So these are the basic steps involved in research. So based on these steps involved, we find out solution to some common problems available. Thank you.